Hello and welcome back to the Owl's Nest, a place where timeless wisdom drifts into your mind as you drift into sleep. Tonight, we'll be exploring ideas from the laws of human nature by Robert Greene, gently unfolding its lessons in a calm, slow and relaxing way as you prepare for rest. Before we begin, get into a comfortable position and allow your body to fully relax. These narrations are best experienced with headphones, so you can be fully immersed in the voice and the subtle binaural beats designed to support deep relaxation. There is nothing you need to analyze or remember. You don't need to stay focused or alert. Just listen softly in the background and allow the words to pass through your mind effortlessly. As the narration fades, the binaural beats will continue, helping you sink into deeper rest, while your subconscious quietly absorbs the themes and ideas. If you enjoy these journeys into timeless books and hidden wisdom, consider subscribing to the Owl's Nest so you don't miss what comes next. Now, take a slow breath in and gently let it go. Let the thoughts of the day begin to fade. Allow your eyes to close whenever you're ready, and we'll begin. What lies beneath the surface? Robert Greene opens this book with a quiet but unsettling observation that we understand ourselves and the people around us far less than we assume. Beneath the calm, rational surface we present to the world, he suggests, runs a much older, much less rational current, made of emotion, instinct, and impulses we rarely examine. We like to believe our decisions come from clear thinking, but more often, Greene argues, we feel first and explain ourselves to ourselves afterward. This isn't meant as something discouraging. It's simply an invitation to look a little closer, to notice the current beneath the surface, rather than pretending it isn't there. Because once it's seen clearly, Greene suggests, it loses much of its power over us. He compares this to steering a boat. A sailor who ignores the current beneath the water isn't free of its influence. They're simply pushed around by it without realizing why. But a sailor who understands the current can work with it, adjust for it, and reach their destination far more smoothly. Understanding our own irrational undercurrents, Greene suggests, works much the same way. You don't have to hold on to any of this too tightly. Just let it drift over you like a slow-moving cloud, here for a moment, and then gone, making space for the next thought to arrive. Becoming the calm observer. There is a quiet skill Greene returns to throughout the book, the ability to step back from your own reactions and simply observe them. Most people, he explains, are swept along by whatever they feel in the moment. Irritation, excitement, insecurity, reacting instantly without pause. But there's a different way of moving through life, one where you notice the feeling rising without immediately becoming it. Greene calls this a kind of inner distance, not suppression, not pretending the feeling isn't there, but simply creating a small gap between the emotion and the action that follows it. In that gap, he suggests, real choice becomes possible. This quality takes practice. It isn't something most people arrive with naturally, but cultivated slowly. Moment by moment, it becomes a kind of quiet strength, the ability to remain steady, even when everything around you feels anything but. You don't need to reach for this feeling right now. You can simply notice it, like still water beneath a windy sky, and let your body grow heavier, softer, sinking further into the space beneath you. The masks we wear. Greene spends a great deal of time on an idea borrowed from an old branch of psychology, the notion that every person presents a kind of mask to the world, a curated self, polished, careful, a little different from what lies underneath. This isn't dishonesty, he's careful to note. It's simply how social life works. We adjust ourselves for different settings, different people, different moments. The mask lets us move through the world smoothly, without exposing every raw, unfiltered part of ourselves at once. But Greene also points out that whatever gets pushed behind the mask, the parts of ourselves we find inconvenient or embarrassing, or simply don't want to look at, doesn't disappear. It waits, and it tends to surface sooner or later in ways we don't always recognize as connected to it. Understanding this, he suggests, isn't about tearing off every mask or demanding total transparency from yourself or anyone else. It's simply about knowing the mask is there and staying gently curious about what it might be covering. Greene notes that the mask becomes a problem only when we forget it's a mask at all, when we start to believe the polished, presented version is the whole story, both in ourselves and in others. A little awareness of the gap between the two, he suggests, is often enough to keep us honest, without requiring us to abandon the mask altogether. Some performance, after all, is simply how social life works. There's nothing you need to examine right now, though. Just let this thought settle, like snow falling quietly outside a window, while your own mind grows quieter and quieter still. Reading the patterns in others. One of the most practical threads in the book is Greene's insistence that people are far more predictable than they seem, if you learn to watch closely. He suggests that most people reveal themselves constantly through small, consistent signals. The way they handle a minor frustration, the way they speak about others when those others aren't present, the tiny inconsistencies between what someone says and what they actually do. Greene calls this a kind of quiet detective work, not suspicion exactly, but attentiveness, a willingness to notice patterns over time rather than taking any single moment or any single impression at face value. The people who understand human nature most deeply, he suggests, aren't the ones with some rare gift of insight. They're simply the ones who slowed down long enough to actually pay attention. Greene also cautions against reading too much into any single moment. One frustrated word, one off day, tells you very little on its own. It's the pattern across time that speaks honestly. The behavior someone returns to again and again, in different situations, with different people. That repetition, he suggests, is where the truth of a person actually lives. And maybe, as you rest here tonight, you can offer that same quality of attention to yourself, noticing the weight of your body, the softness of the breath, without judging any of it. Simply observing, simply allowing. The old patterns we repeat. Greene writes at length about something he calls our compulsive patterns, the tendency to repeat the same emotional dynamics again and again, often without realizing it. Much of this, he suggests, traces back to early experience, the particular emotional atmosphere we grew up inside of. Without meaning to, we often recreate familiar dynamics later in life, even when those dynamics caused us pain the first time around. Familiar, it turns out, often feels safer than unfamiliar, even when familiar isn't especially healthy. Greene's suggestion here is gentle, not harsh. Simply noticing the pattern, he argues, is often enough to loosen its grip. You don't have to force some dramatic change. Awareness alone begins to create a little space, a little room to choose differently when the same old pattern shows up again. He also notes that these patterns often show up most clearly in our closest relationships, the people we return to again and again, sometimes for reasons we can't fully explain. Looking honestly at what draws us towards certain dynamics, he suggests, is one of the most direct paths toward understanding ourselves. There is nothing to rush here either. Let this thought settle slowly, the way a stone sinks gently through still water, no effort, only gravity, only time. The many shapes of human nature. Throughout the book, Greene sketches different tendencies that show up again and again in people, not as fixed categories, but as familiar shapes worth recognizing. There is the tendency toward envy, a quiet discomfort at someone else's good fortune, often hidden even from the person feeling it. There is the tendency toward grandiosity, an inflated sense of one's own importance, usually masking a much more fragile sense of self underneath. There is the tendency toward conformity, the pull to think and act like everyone else nearby, simply because it feels safer than standing apart. And there is the tendency toward aimlessness, drifting through life without a clear sense of direction, mistaking busyness for purpose. Greene's point in naming these so plainly isn't to judge them, it's simply to make them visible, because a tendency you can name, he suggests, is a tendency you can gently work with, rather than one that quietly works on you, unseen. You don't need to identify with any one of these tonight. You can simply let the descriptions pass through you, soft and unhurried, like listening to rain from somewhere warm and dry. The weight of comparison. Greene spends particular care on envy, calling it one of the most common and most quietly denied of all human emotions. Few people, he observes, will admit to feeling envious. It carries a kind of shame that most other emotions don't, and so it hides, disguising itself as criticism, or indifference, or a sudden coolness towards someone whose success stirs something uncomfortable. The antidote, Greene suggests, isn't pretending envy doesn't exist. It's recognizing it honestly when it arises, and understanding that it usually points towards something you actually want for yourself. Information really disguised as discomfort. You can let any comparison your mind is holding on to simply loosen now. There is nothing to measure yourself against here, only this quiet moment, entirely your own. The fragile self behind grandiosity. On the opposite end of envy, Greene explores grandiosity, the inflated self-image some people carry, often without realizing how thin the foundation beneath it really is. He suggests that grandiosity usually isn't confidence at all, despite how it appears from the outside. It's often compensation, an attempt to outrun some earlier feeling of inadequacy by constructing a larger, more impressive version of oneself to hide behind. Real self-assurance, Greene notes, looks quite different. It doesn't need constant confirmation. It doesn't require an audience. It's settled, quiet, and doesn't feel the need to announce itself. You can let go of any need to prove anything right now, to anyone, including yourself. There's nothing here that requires impressing, only rest. The courage of self-honesty. Threaded through the entire book is a quality Greene clearly admires, the courage it takes to look honestly at your own nature, including the parts that aren't flattering. Most people, he observes, prefer a comfortable story about themselves over an accurate one. It's easier, in the short term, to believe you're simply unlucky or misunderstood than to examine the ways your own patterns might be contributing to your circumstances. But Greene suggests that this kind of honest self-examination, uncomfortable as it can be, is ultimately what frees a person, not to feel guilty about human nature, but to work with it consciously, rather than being quietly steered by parts of yourself you've never bothered to look at. You don't need to examine anything about yourself tonight, though. You've already done the brave part simply by slowing down, by resting, by allowing this quiet moment to exist, undisturbed. What quietly distorts our view? Greene also names several habits of mind that quietly distort how clearly we see ourselves and others. Short-sightedness is one of them. The tendency to focus so completely on the present moment that we lose sight of longer patterns and consequences. Defensiveness is another, the instinct to protect our self-image so fiercely that we can no longer hear feedback, even when it's offered gently and with good intent. And perhaps most quietly damaging of all, the tendency to see other people as simpler, flatter versions of ourselves, rather than taking the time to understand the full, complicated reality of who they actually are. None of this, Greene reminds his readers, makes a person bad. It simply makes them human. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness, gently, gradually, loosening the grip these patterns hold. You can let that idea rest gently too. Nothing here needs correcting tonight, only softening, only rest. Toward a higher perspective. Near the end of the book, Greene describes what he calls a higher form of consciousness, a way of relating to your own nature and to the nature of others with clarity rather than judgment. This isn't about rising above human feeling, he clarifies. It's about holding your feelings and your patterns with a little more perspective, seeing them clearly, the way you might watch weather pass across a landscape, present, real, but not something you need to be swept away by. Practiced over time, Greene suggests, this quality changes a person quietly. From the inside, reactions that once felt automatic begin to loosen. Old patterns lose some of their grip, not because they've vanished entirely, but because they're finally being seen. He describes this shift as less like a single dramatic transformation, and more like a slow change in altitude. The same landscape looks entirely different from a little higher up, less tangled, easier to make sense of. Nothing about the terrain itself needed to change, only the vantage point. Closing reflection. If there is one thread that ties all of these ideas together, it is this: that understanding human nature, our own included, isn't about judgment, it's about clarity. And clarity, gently held, tends to soften whatever it touches. You don't need to remember any of this. It is already settled somewhere deep, quietly folding itself into the edges of your mind, the way tonight's thoughts are folding into stillness. There is nowhere to be, nothing to do, only this soft darkness and the gentle hum of sound around you. Let your body sink a little heavier into wherever you're resting. Let your breath grow slower, longer, further apart. And whenever you're ready, let go completely and drift into sleep. If you found this journey relaxing, consider subscribing to The Owl's Nest, and I'll see you in the next one.